Hey guys, and welcome to World Shot. It's a very early morning here, and we've just witnessed the greatness of Jake Paul beating Tyron Woodley via split decision. Of course, in a little bit of tongue in cheek there, but um, they took the win, split decision. We'll get into that first. Then, obviously, on one of the scorecards, he actually apparently had won 6 out of 8 rounds, which we thought was pretty weird considering on our cards, I think we had it as even. We're not boxing experts, but we had it as even. I think social media is blowing up a little bit because I think Tyron Woodley won. I can see it as a draw. I would have been happy with a draw. I think it's not a robbery, but I think that scorecard was just
Mm.
pretty crazy. Thoughts, Mohammed?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we had it as a draw. I believe the judges' cards had it 77-75 in favor of Paul, 77-75 in favor of Woodley, and then 78-74 in favor of Paul. So Paul won by split decision. That third judgment, that I don't see how 78-74 in favor of Paul could have been scored. To be honest, they both had their respective um, good bits throughout the fight. To be honest, there wasn't a clear change in the narrative of the fight. I don't really think either of them. Well, I would argue maybe that Jake started off better. Maybe in the first two rounds, I would argue that Jake started off better, but then I think Tyron Woodley, after the first two rounds, maybe got a feel for things a bit more. Maybe found his range, got a better understanding for the fight, picked up all the various bits of information that he needed to make any adjustments, and he started connecting better, had more success. But other than that, really, it was more or less even, which with each fighter having success at different points in the fight. It wasn't really any clear dominant fighter, dominating the rounds at any real point after the midway part of the fight, I would say. There was
Yeah.
obviously the what we classed as a knockdown, and I think that was in the fifth. Was it in the fifth round? Was it?
Yeah,
Or
I think it was the fourth or fifth round,
fourth or fifth
and
round,
yeah,
and that was certainly a knockdown in our view. That um, Tyron Woodley landed on Jake Paul, and Jake Paul basically fell backwards into the ropes, and it seems to have held himself up by the ropes, using his hand to try and hold himself up. That would have been a knockdown. If that was a knockdown, then potentially on the judges' existing scorecards, it might have changed the decision, so that actually would have been a split decision in favor of Tyron Woodley, which is incredibly significant because it changes the actual outcome of the fight. So, questions around why the referee didn't rule that as a knockdown. Seemed to be a clear knockdown. But notwithstanding that, which is probably the most controversial aspect of the fight, and obviously people will argue back and forth whether Tyron Woodley actually won the fight. We had it as a draw, and I think if we had counted the knockdown, because when I was scoring this fight as a draw,
yeah,
I didn't count the knockdown.
yeah, same. So we would have
If
had one in
if we
front.
had counted the knockdown, we would have had Woodley in front.
Yeah.
So arguably, Tyron Woodley on our scorecard actually won if we were to have scored that knockdown as it should have been, which is as a knockdown. So, you know, arguably Tyron Woodley won, but it is what it is. Jake Paul did enough to convince the judges. It's not necessarily a robbery that Jake Paul won because, like we said, it was quite a close fight. To be
Yeah.
perfectly honest.
It was largely uneventful, wasn't it? It wasn't
Largely
really.
largely
It wasn't.
uneventful. A lot of parrying, a lot of punching and clinching, especially from Jake. A
Yeah.
lot of dancing around the ring from Jake. Um, yeah, wasn't particularly eventful. I think
No.
if Jake wants to keep this up, he should continue to fight well-known celebrities because people will buy it just to watch it. But if
Mhm.
he wants to treat his boxing career more seriously, he should stop fighting people who are UFC fighters or YouTubers or basketball players. He needs to start fighting professional boxers. And
Yeah. Just
maybe
fight.
Tommy Fury is an
Yeah.
appropriate next fight for him as a result of that. Maybe
Yeah.
he should
Agreed.
he should try and fight Tommy Fury, who would probably pose as a better test compared to Tyron Woodley for various reasons. I mean, Tommy
Yeah,
Fury, for example, he's got obviously his whole family is pretty much involved in boxing.
yeah,
He's got a height that more or less is better better matched to Jake Paul's height. So that's probably worth considering as well. I mean, not sure to what extent the height disadvantage for Woodley had in the fight, given that we had Woodley up anyway. But if Jake Paul wants to continue fighting in like cruiserweight or kind of heavyweight type of circumstances, then I think a good next fight would probably be Tommy Fury, who by the way, didn't really have the best fight. I mean, he obviously won
no,
by unanimous decision, 40-36. Fair dues. Like, he won quite convincingly. He didn't have the best fight. Maybe that will incentivize Jake to take that fight. But he's going to go to the drawing board, as he says, and see what's next for him. And as we were discussing earlier, maybe he's having another think about whether he wants to continue doing this boxing sport, given that he nearly suffered a knockdown, and maybe he was thinking a million things in his head at the time that was happening because it was first ever time
yeah. I
potentially
think
being knocked down in a fight.
yeah, agreed. I think when you get knocked down and you get hurt in a fight, that's kind of the moment a lot of boxers say that you know what you're made of, and whether you are going to, some people after that they think this isn't for me. I don't want to do this anymore. Like I don't. He's had it all his own way. Did get hurt significantly, not just with that, but a couple of times in the fight. And Tyron Woodley obviously had success, and that's why, as you said, if we count the knockdown, we would have had him one up. But
Mm,
look, yeah, as I said, not a robbery. But Jake Paul, I don't know where he goes from here. I think a lot of people would have thought that he would have KO'd Woodley. I mean, we thought it might happen as well, but Tyron Woodley definitely better than we thought. Obviously, his striking isn't horrific, and he clearly is not a cruiserweight. I think he's a light heavyweight if he was to fight as a boxer because he fought at 170 pounds as a UFC fighter. 175 is light heavyweight, so he's fighting to well, he's fighting one weight class above where he would be normally. And obviously, like it's just it is what it is. Jake Paul's not a professional boxer, and he's got a professional boxing record, but he hasn't fought anyone who is a professional boxer yet. He should be fighting people that are novices in boxing like him, and that's how he would know and get a gauge of how good he actually is, and that's probably the best way to do it, and build himself up. But I understand he's a big draw and blah blah and whatever, but he probably said it himself, to be honest with you.
mm,
And he probably thinks, why should I give these guys the opportunity? They haven't done anything in their lives, so why not fight these celebrities who, they kind of they'll sell it as well, and they kind of deserve it. But it's interesting. Well, I don't know whether he's gonna. He says he's gonna take it seriously. We'll see after. But he said I'm gonna go back to drawing board and think about it, which kind of to me, as you said, it sounds like he isn't 100% sure how he wants to proceed. He doesn't know whether he wants to do this seriously, like maybe he was talking about before, but we'll see. I don't want to talk too much about it because I just think it is what it is. They obviously said about the rematch as well. Would I
it's not
like to see a
happening.
rematch?
No,
I don't think the
no.
rematch. It wouldn't be very exciting, but I wouldn't like. I would watch it. I'd watch it. Unfortunately, like I would watch it because I would like to see Tyron Woodley knock him out. But no, I'm
I
joking.
would
I just
watch it,
think
unfortunately. Yeah,
I
that's
would watch it
basically
though.
what everyone else is.
But
Obviously,
the only thing that I would say is that Jake Paul will get better because he's training all the time. It's just a question of would Tyron Woodley, if he was too cocky, which he could be, he might just say, "Well, I'm good enough. I don't need to train, or improve." But if he did train and improve, then and both of them did. I can see Tyron Woodley then actually winning, but and winning like more convincingly than maybe we thought he had. But either way, like we'll see. As you said, I don't think they will fight. The fact that Jake Paul and Logan Paul were like your old news to me signifies that they don't want it because it was a tough fight. Like they don't want
yeah,
it again, basically. And they talk about a tattoo thing. And if he gets a tattoo that says "I love Jake Paul," then they'll do it. They shook hands, but a gentleman's agreement is in a contract, so we shall see.
certainly not going to happen.
Yeah,
Even if he does have the tattoo made, I'm sure they're not going to have the rematch. People
yeah.
don't want to watch. I'm sure people don't want to watch that.
People will watch it. Of course they will. It's a close fight. They
they're not.
will. They will.
It's not going to sell.
They will.
It's not going to sell as much pay-per-view as this one did. No,
Mate,
I'm sure.
it will sell enough. Trust me.
I certainly don't want to watch it. I
No, no,
certainly
no. I'm
don't
not.
want
I'm
to watch
not
it.
saying that. I'm just saying that not for you, but in terms of the general public, they definitely will. Amanda Serrano was impressive. Was your first time watching her? Do you want to give a very quick overview of what you thought?
Yeah, sure. I think the Serrano Mercado fight was probably the most exciting fight out of all the fights today, including the main fight. I think Serrano showed incredible speed. Her combinations were great. She was really good at cutting off the ring and coming forward. Combinations were excellent. She went to the body and went upstairs. She dealt a lot of damage to Mercado, who had a very impressive record on a young fighter. So I was really impressed by Serrano. Yeah, really impressed. So it'll be interesting to see who she fights next, and who can pose a proper challenge for her. Because although Mercado, I'm sure, is a good fighter, she was really outclassed by Serrano, to be perfectly honest. And it was a real treat watching a professional boxer do her stuff by comparison to the main fight. Honestly, I found it far more interesting
Yeah,
than the Paul Woodley fight.
yeah. I mean, she is alongside Katie Taylor and probably Cressa Shields. Those are the three best female fighters in the world right now. So she rightfully, I think, and we saw that, has this aura of class about her that she definitely showed. And I think let's hope that Katie Taylor wins in her fight on the 4th of September, which we will be doing. And I think you guys will be doing, and also, well, you'll be doing, and hope I might be joining you as well. And also, we've got um, then we can sort out the Katie Taylor Amanda Serrano fight, because I'll tell you what, Katie Taylor wins there. Those two fighting will be fireworks, because Katie Taylor is all action, so that'll be good as well. Daniel Dubois was good. Well, we'll say it's good, but obviously fought someone who doesn't have. Let's be honest. He's is what it is. He's not a bum. He's not a tomato can. He's not a gatekeeper, but he's someone who has a padded record.
Mm,
Isn't a amazing fighter, but is like decent. But he was just clearly not the class of Daniel Dubois.
no,
Dubois just
no.
knocked him out in one round and just showed what really he'd shown leading up to the Joe Joyce fight, which is I've got power, I've got enough speed, and I can knock out anyone who's not higher than British level, basically.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think Dubois absolutely destroyed Joe Cusimano. There's absolute destruction, and it's really good for Dubois. Yes, I agree. He's not. Although Cusimano is not necessarily a bum, he's also not necessarily the type of guy who's got a glittering record. Nevertheless, I'm sure this will be a really good confidence booster for Dubois, and continues his kind of status, which is continuing to develop as him being a knockout artist, which is exciting for people to want to watch, and makes him very marketable, to be honest. And I know we had a chat about how he still needs to maybe develop his or maybe he doesn't need to, but he's not necessarily as he doesn't have the gift of the gab that some other fighters in the heavyweight division have. But at least he's certainly got the gift of a heavy punch, and it certainly showed in that fight. I mean, he knocked Cusimano down 3 times, and that's all she wrote, and it was within a very quick time. It was easy work for Dubois. So a really good fight for him. I'm sure that will help him continue to build his confidence. And I'd like to see Dubois fight the likes of some of the fighters that we were mentioning earlier on the stream, as challenges to him. He should really look to start fighting kind of other fighters who are step ups in the heavyweight division. His only loss was to Joe Joyce. Nothing to be ashamed about there. So he should look to fight people who are more of a challenge.
Yeah, step ups for sure. Yeah, Chisora, Takam, those kind of guys. We talked about Brazil
Yeah,
as well. Like these are guys who are all dangerous and have carry power. They can cause issues, and they are the acid tests. And he is number one ranked in the WBA.
yeah,
Obviously, I don't know if you know, but the WBA have been the interim belts. So he was interim champion, but they binned it because the overall overarching boxing committee basically said that the WA had to relinquish some of the belts. They basically have 3 times the amount of belts than all the other 3 combined boards had together. So basically ridiculous. So they've relinquished that. So he's no longer the interim champion, but he will be either be called for a mandatory or he'll fight for a final eliminator. So he is in a very good position, but clearly he's not ready, let's be honest, for a world title fight yet. Well, depending on who it's against, but he's not ready for a Anthony Joshua, a Tyson Fury, a Deontay Wilder, Alexander Usyk. He's not ready for those guys. He will need one, at least, I would say probably 2 fights at least, until he's ready for those guys and to compete with them. So let's see. But he's still very exciting. He's still very young, and I'm hoping that we see him continue to develop. Then to finish up on then Tommy Fury. I mean, I know you watched obviously a 4 round, I think it was, with Anthony Taylor.
Yeah, no, it was a a successful fight for Fury. He won by unanimous decision. I think it was 40-36 was the score. He mentioned himself it wasn't necessarily his best fight, but he did get the job done. It wasn't necessarily a particularly entertaining fight to watch, but I'm sure he'll be going back to the drawing board and continuing to train, and did decide to, at the end of his fight, shout out Jake Paul and try and call him and see if he's willing to fight him in the future. So another person to add to the list for Jake Paul if he wants to examine his options. It was important for Tommy Fury to get out there and be seen by the US crowd as well. So hopefully that will kind of raise his image and his status, and people will remember him. But it wasn't a particularly memorable fight. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how much Tommy Fury continues to develop, and if he does get the Jake Paul fight, that will obviously act as a significant motivating factor in any subsequent training he decides to undergo. But that's still TBD and potentially unlikely that he'll get that fight. But we'll see. We'll see. A win is a win.
Yeah, a win's a win, and I think, as you said, maybe if Jake Paul is going to take it seriously, he might look at that and say, "Well, this guy's not really much," and that's probably what Tommy Fury will be thinking. Well, okay, fine, I didn't fight that well, but I mean, it might mean that I get the fight, and it's a big payday for both. It will sell, 100%. It will sell. So let's see. I mean, to be fair, I'm intrigued if that fight does happen. To be honest with you, because I don't know if, which sounds crazy, but I don't know if Tommy Fury is good enough because we're not talking about a boxer who's had an extensive amateur background. He doesn't have an extensive pro career so far. He is an absolute novice, and just because he's the brother of Tyson Fury means absolutely nothing. Like genuinely, it means nothing. Like brothers, it doesn't always translate into this guy's going to be a fantastic fighter. Like he's not Tyson Fury. He is Tommy Fury. So let's take it for what it is, and don't people. Some of our subscribers are saying, "Oh, Tyson Fury can just train him." Yeah, of course that will help him. But at the end of the day, the only person fighting in the ring is Tommy Fury. So you either got it or you don't. And you've got a certain skill level or base, and at the moment it's looking like again, like it's a bit harsh, but in terms of the fights he's had so far, it looks like he doesn't quite have as much talent in terms of potential as Tyson Fury. Which, to be fair, Tyson Fury didn't look amazing in his first 10 fights, but he showed a little bit of promise. I don't think anyone's seen that yet with Tommy Fury. Yes, he's got some power, to be fair, knocked out most of his opponents, but that kind of seems to be, he looks a bit stiff. So we'll see anyway. We'll see. Any parting words?
No, it's been an interesting fight. Interesting fights to watch. Obviously, the main card was quite an unorthodox one for us to be live streaming, but I enjoyed it nevertheless, and hopefully everyone else enjoyed it as well. Bit of entertainment mixed in with some more professional fights. So it's good, all good for boxing.
Yeah, we had some YouTube debates going on about YouTube drama in the chat, which is hilarious as well.
Yeah. Good stuff. Thank you for your contribution. That was very enlightening.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already as well. I will see you on the next video. Thank you very much.